Chapter 1. Brutal. What do we do with her? We can't keep her in there forever. Why can't we? That came from St. John. She isn't actually your pet, Cash snapped. He shoved off the couch, resuming his pacing on the rug. She's the lying, deceiving killer who we all happen to be in love with. And they say soulmates don't exist, Mercer replied. He reclined in his usual spot, in his usual pose, an excellent attempt to appear unbothered. She fucking wormed her way into our lives to get her hands on the ledger. I heard Cash shout more during this conversation than I had in the years we'd been working together. Adeline Redgrave had certainly wormed her way into him. Phantom fingers skated over me, trying to tease out a laugh as hers whispered in my ear. He wasn't the only one. Technically, we wormed her into our lives, Mercer reminded. We forced her to work for us. You and Sin made her go on jobs. If she told us who she really was and what she wanted from the beginning, we would have killed her. She didn't have much of a choice. Killian's jaw ticked. Are you her lawyer now, Mercer? Nope, I'm just giving insight into how this interrogation will go. We blow in there spitting mad and the lovely Adeline will remind us this is our own doing, he said. And she'll be right. Leaning back, I spotted a speck of dust on my sleeve. I was up and across the room, riffling through Cash's cabinet. His office was one of the few rooms to be spared St. John's rage. As such, other than mine, it was the only room I'd remain in without beating his face in. We'd gone for each other's throats 3 times in the period she was gone. Tension made me clean and him destroy. With her return and the revelations it brought, it was time for a truce. I found his lint roller next to a row of identical black ties. 1, 2, 3. The lint was gone by 2. It did not change what I had to do. 4, 5, 6. Anything you want to add, Brutal? St. John spoke up. 7, 8, 9, 10. There was plenty I wanted to add. It had been 2 days since we walked into the trap at the club, 2 days since we discovered the true Kieran, 2 days since we found out the love of our lives wasn't who she seemed, 2 days since we put her in a cage in the basement and left her there while we argued over what to do. Of course I had something to fucking add. But I said nothing. Nodding here, gesturing there, I waited until it was finally time for Adeline. My count complete, I returned the roller to its place, straightened a tie, closed the cabinet. Turning to St. John, I gestured at the door. In due time, he said simply. Long past the point she should fear us, Kilian was saying. She knew we wouldn't kill her if she told us the truth. She lied anyway. We also wouldn't agree to hand over the ledger, Mercer countered. It always comes back to that. In this city, in our lives, in the lives of every damn person strolling the streets of Cinco. Some way or another, it's all about the ledger. They fell silent. Kilian returned to his seat, steepling his fingers over his chest. Redgrave said this all started with her father and a gang called the Lords. Have you heard of them? St. John, Mercer, and I shook our heads. Her father is getting up there in age. We'd have been children when they were running the streets. But I've dug as deep as you can go into the period Kieran was most active, taking jobs as a fixer. I've researched every gang, crime family, and syndicate there was back then. How were the Lords erased? The person with the answer to that is in the basement. St. John got to his feet. It's time. Kilian nodded. How will you question her, Sin? Like I said, she knows we won't hurt her. There are other ways of getting information. Bunny's taught us that, if nothing else. He swept out of the room, the 3 of us trailing him. I suspected their minds were a whirl of conflicting thoughts as we traveled down one flight, then another, battling their feelings for her in the midst of betrayal and distrust. I did not envy them. The space where I existed did not know such noise, no internal struggle, no push and pull between right and wrong, and me suffering under a shouting conscience. It was a quiet world, a one-way street through a desert path without traffic lights or traffic itself. As Adeline stood over Lorenzo Bianchi, foot to his throat and smirk hanging off those full lips, I made a decision without pulling over to question. This is the path we're on now. Me and my Adeline. We stepped off the stairs, fanning around her. Adeline sat cross-legged on the bottom of the cage, palms flat on her knees, back straight, and eyes closed. She could almost be meditating. Our arrival broke the trance. Raising her head, she smiled at us. "Hello, lovers." "Bunny," Sinjin greeted. He bent and kissed her through the bars. Adeline turned to us like we'd do the same. I did. Crouching down, cool metal bit into my flesh as I tasted her, swiping those slightly chapped lips to pay entrance. Our tongues tangled, gifting me the sweetness of her leftover salted caramel cheesecake. Her imprisonment was different this time around. Mercer brought her meals, and the blanket we gifted her was folded and lying neatly next to the cage. I sensed torture wouldn't work this time around. I sensed it didn't work the first time either. Adeline was always right where she wanted to be. I traced the curve of her smile. That hasn't changed. I retreated, and Mercer took my spot. Linking fingers, he kissed her knuckles, and then reclaimed his place. Kieran didn't move an inch. Adeline cocked her head. "Have you come to let me out?" "We've come for the truth," Kieran said. "All of it, right now." "I've told you the truth. Or did you think I was lying about being a trained killer who's been after the ledger for years?" "But that's not all of it, is it, love?" Sinjin circled the cage. "I knew there was something different about you. You were never a non-player character. We were written with the same code." "Yes, we were." "Sadly," he stopped in front of her, "we've reached the point you must become frightfully predictable. You'll tell us everything about you from your weight in ounces the day you were born to your last thought before we came in this room." Her smile didn't waver. "And if I don't?" "Naturally, you'll be punished." "Punished?" Adeline's brows blew up her head. "What exactly were you thinking? Because I do so enjoy being spanked." "Just the opposite," he replied. "No sex." "No sex?" "That's right. We're turning off the tap." Silently, Adeline uncrossed her legs in the tight space, getting to her feet. She pressed herself against the bars. "You'd deny me for the sake of hearing all my dirty little secrets? Good plan. But you forgot one thing." "What's that?" Adeline stroked his collar. "It'll be torture for both of us, and I just don't think you can hold out, St. John Belisario." "I think so." She towed him in. "I survived 28 years without that pussy." "Survived is right. You existed in a steady, unchanging rhythm like a coma patient hooked up to life support. It took finding your soulmate," she slipped her hand in his shirt, "to get that heart racing again. Your soulmate is me, by the way." Sinjin kept coming, curling his hand over the one holding the bar. "A lying, scheming temptress more deadly than a force of nature." His nose skimmed her cheek. "Sounds about right." "Sinjin," Kieran warned. "I had to lie to you." Her lips trembled, an act so seemingly genuine I couldn't be certain it wasn't. "If I told you the truth, you'd have tried to kill me. Not the best way to start a relationship." She trailed down, finding his belt and slipping past its barrier. "But that's all behind us now. I know what you want." She stroked him in earnest, arm banging against the metal. Grunts ripped out of him. "Sinjin!" barked Kieran. "And you know what I want," Adeline finished. "What kiss would kiss that kiss be?" Adeline shot away from him, blowing that mask of pleasure into surprise. "Aren't I supposed to suffer through celibacy hell first?" she asked. "You wouldn't respect me if I gave it up that easily." Sinjin roared. Grabbing her, the two smashed into the bars, going at each other like this was the last before celibacy hell. Sinjin's belt flew between me and Mercer, striking 3 knives off the wall. I set them right, her moans a backdrop to my straightening. Turning back, Sinjin's pants pooled around his ankles. He lifted her leg, hooked it around a bar, and disappeared between her middle. Slap, 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 slap. "Ah, saint!" The flesh-on-flesh smacking of the vigorous plundering of her wet pussy competed with her heightening moans. Adeline threw her head back, lips round in a screaming "oh," and smooth, perfect throat long and begging for my mouth. She truly was the most beautiful creature I'd ever seen. Beautiful like velvety petals, all the same shape and size. Beauty like the hidden, intricate world of snowflakes, of a fresh blanket of untouched snow, of that quiet space between waking and sleeping when a day is just beginning, and it still has the hope of being good. Dancing around the kitchen with a spatula and a grin on her face that said I'd be in trouble if I entered her space, and daring me to anyway. That was Adeline's beauty. Perfection. Sinjin spun her around. Adeline grabbed the bars, bending to Sin's hunger. He pushed inside and her cry caught in her throat. Sinjin started pumping, banging his hips against the cage, ratcheting her moans up tenfold. Her hair brushed the cushion. Upside down, she clung to her prison, fighting to stay upright, as Sinjin did his best to break her in half. They both came, sounding off to push the soundproofing to its limits. Adeline collapsed on the cushion, chest heaving, satisfaction etched in her face. "Shit," Sinjin breathed. "New plan." The glare Kieran directed at his brother could have burned down the building. Adeline laughed. Gathering the blanket around her, she said, "Why don't we skip future attempts at torture, and you just ask me what you want to ask me?" "Why bother? We'd have no way of knowing if you were telling us the truth," said Kieran. "There's no reason to lie." She pointed to the bra Sinjin tossed at Mercer's feet. He gathered her clothes and handed them back. "I have no secrets left to protect. At some point, you have to trust me." She dressed while her statements hung in the air. Adeline was right, but it was a conclusion I came to shortly after we trussed her up, put her in the back of the stolen car, and drove away from Richard LaRoche's house. What else could she be hiding bigger than her true self and motives? She wasn't an innocent cook toiling away in the kitchen when 4 bangers knocked her off track. She was after what every criminal in Cinco City was dying to get their hands on. Now we knew. What happened next depended on us as much as it did her. "All right, we're listening. Where is the ledger?" asked Kieran. "We were right behind you. You didn't have time to kill LaRoche, the guards, and break into the vault. What happened to it?" A frown broke her smile. "I have no idea. Like you said, I didn't have enough time. You guys caught up to me faster than I expected. When I got there, they were already dead, and the vault was ransacked. Someone else got there first," she said. "My guess is it's one of the kings who got away. 3 hightailed it when the bullets started flying. If one of them sacked up and came back for their boss, they would have heard Enzo's confession." I found myself nodding. The logic was sound. More than sound. It likely happened exactly how she laid it out. 3 kings got away from us, and while we stood dumbfounded in the face of the true Adeline, it was possible any one of them heard something they shouldn't. Kilian studied her. I could almost hear his calculating mind weighing her words for truth. What? You don't believe me? She challenged. You snatched me up coming out of the vault empty-handed. If I don't have it, who does? No, Kilian said. That much I do believe, if only because balance of probability only slides one way. We'll put LaRoche aside for now. Tell us about the Lords. What did you mean when you said they were the reason all of this started? Sighing, Adeline stretched out, dropping her head against the bars. Might want to grab a seat. It's a long story. We stayed still, the only sound Sinjin doing up his zipper and belt. The first thing you need to know, the one thing everyone has so wrong, is Kieran is not a name. It's a title. Kilian stepped forward. What does that mean? There was once a Kieran, a long time ago, she said. He possessed the ledger. He used it to bend the city to its knees. Then he was discovered, slaughtered in his bed, and the ledger found a new owner who adopted the name to go with it. So it's been, over the years, a long, bloody history of the ledger changing hands. Richard LaRoche wasn't the Kieran, he was a Kieran. We exchanged looks. So while everyone was looking for an old man with 20 years' worth of mileage, said Kilian, the real owner of the ledger moved his chess pieces in the shadows. She clicked her tongue. Exactly. It's almost genius. Most were looking for the wrong person, but enough people did find the right one. Like Bianchi unearthed LaRoche, she said. It's hard to say exactly how many Kierans there have been. It almost doesn't matter. Once they had the ledger in their hands, they were tapped into all of the operations the original Kieran started. The gun-running operation through Merriman Circus, a cut of the drug money from the Bowery Boys, Kieran's guiding hand on the mayor. It's all in the ledger. And through the years, it's grown as new Kierans added their own rackets. She blew out a breath. I can only imagine what's in there now after however many years of Richard LaRoche's reign. The collection of criminals he brought under his roof for that party was astounding. If he's got means for blackmailing all of them, she fixed on Kilian. Just look at the power he had over you. Stiffly, he nodded. Their understanding wasn't shared by the rest of us. What is she talking about? What's she talking about? Sinjin demanded, voicing my question. I always wondered why Kieran forced me out of forging, Kilian said. He ordered me to stay straight when a crime boss such as him could have made me work for him instead. Flog my art with him receiving the bigger cut. I didn't put together that a year before I received the call that wrecked my life, I met a man in a gallery, boasted that I was better than him, and snubbed his offer to bring me under his wing. 17th century Dutch oil paint, Adeline said. Vermeer. Kilian shook his head. The single artist LaRoche couldn't forge. You even taunted the man with the lace maker on your second meeting. No wonder he hated you. He got his revenge, Kilian hissed. The whole time it was personal. The ledger gave him the pressure he needed to force an arrogant pup out of the business. No chance I'd rise to become truly better than him. She held out her hands. Such is the power of the ledger. All the strings the original Kieran connected to dozens of people, dragging down their wives, husbands, daughters, sons, and friends, growing to hundreds in his pocket, who spread the corruption he plants in their soul. With every new Kieran, it grows. It's not an exaggeration to say that whoever owns the ledger now owns all of Cinco City. And it started with your father, Mercer put in. How? Why has no one heard of the Lords? That was the way they wanted it, she replied. The Lords based in Waterford, but like you guys, they didn't fight needless wars over territory. They didn't spray paint their tags on buildings, or roam the streets with tats announcing their affiliation to everyone who walked by. They worked in a very specific racket, and dragging attention to themselves made as much sense as armored truck drivers posting their routes online. And that racket would be? Sinjin pressed. Come on, guys, she said, smiling. Haven't I set it up by now? The 3 leaders of the lords were fixers and kingmakers: Oscar, Soren, and Kieran. What? Sinjin sprang forward, grabbing the bars. Kieran? The first Kieran? She nodded. The one and same. He wasn't a king like you all assumed. He was a lord, stretching as high as the ceiling, waves of brown curly hair, hands dwarfing my little body as he picked me up and bounced me on his knee. Kieran Foley and Soren Cross grew up in the same foster home as my dad. They were closer than brothers. You knew him, Saint sliced in. He was your father's fucking best friend? My father died in the search for the man who doddered in the rocking chair right next to yours. Adeline stood, placing her hands over his whitening knuckles. The teasing smile was gone. Please, Saint, let me finish. What more is there to fucking say? Your father could have told me the enemies they made, the one who came after the man confessing his sins to a priest. He rattled the cage. You could have. There's so much more to say, she cried. I don't know who sent those men to your father. Neither does my dad. If he did, you can believe my father would have killed them himself. He had a code. The 3 of them did. Until everything went wrong. Let me finish, she said. Then you'll understand all too well. Killian gripped his brother's shoulder, drawing him back. Go on, Mercer said. Taking a deep breath, Adeline did so. They were smart and savvy. A team. Their business started small at first. A few favors for friends who needed a problem taken care of. Then those friends passed their names to their friends. They started charging, and their number kept ringing. Soon, they all had their parts to play. Kieran fielded the requests and collected the payments. He answered the call when the phone rang. Soren did the recon. He checked into backgrounds and named the people in play, and my father carried out the jobs, on his own, or with the men who became a part of the lords. No one could pinpoint a single Kieran because there were actually 3. Soren sitting in a dingy bar whispering in the right ear, Oscar slipping into his house to steal the precious painting a scheming ex-wife lost in the divorce settlement. That was all it was in the beginning, fixing problems for the desperate of Waterford. Then the name Kieran made it into Harlow, then Leabridge, where the scheming ex-wives were worth millions, and the problems needing fixing could explode a city the way only the wealthy can. My dad said if they were going this deep, they had to draw a line. No kids, no hits on the innocent. It was one thing to stage a fake shooting to sway public sympathy for the mayor's re-election. It was another to murder witnesses in a rape trial. You don't want to know how many times they were called up to kill a pregnant mistress that made the mistake of saying child support. Dad refused to be a soulless shithead's cleanup crew. They'd take the money and have them quietly relocated instead. They agreed to the rules, and that's when Kieran proposed they keep records in case a client ever thought to protect their secrets by cleaning up the loose ends. Thus the ledger is born, Mercer said. Yes, she said softly. Time passed, and they amassed more clients, more money, more entries in their black book, and more respect behind the name Kieran. By the time I came along, they were the true kings of Cinco City, and no one knew. If life was so good, why did they turn on their clients? Asked Killian. I told you, she said. I came along. So did Gianna. Oscar and Soren found themselves with 2 little girls, and they wanted to give them the world. Why keep grudging along as the Cinco elite's bitches when it could be the other way around? They could leave us a throne, and that's what they intended to do. She shrugged. It's not like it went against their rules or their conscience. The people in their ledger were far from innocent. Why not get their slice of the pie? Why not take the power and fear the ledger gifted them? Use me, she whispered. Use me. Can you imagine how the ledger whispered in their ear? Yes, we can. It was like having the fountain of youth in their backyard, Adeline said. It was only so long they could resist before finally taking a sip. But something went wrong, Killian said. Soren Cross is dead. Your father is spending his days in a senior home instead of a beach in Malta. And if I'm keeping track, the true Kieran was slaughtered in his bed. What happened? Adeline swept over us, meeting our eyes in turn. The odd glint swimming in those brown pools stiffened our backs. What? Saint pressed. You four. Do you trust each other? Excuse me? Kieran asked. You talk of trusting me, but do you trust each other? Well? She prompted when we didn't answer. One by one, we nodded. Because you're united in the same goal, a shared enemy, Kieran and the Ledger. You can trust you won't turn on each other, while you need the other to help you get what you're after. Does this have a point? Asked Kieran. I admire that. She went on like he hadn't spoken. Honestly, it's one of the things I love about you guys. That you actually see a future where the four of you rule Cinco together, sharing the Ledger. My father believed in that future too. But he was fucking wrong, and so are you. Saint's lips peeled back from his teeth. What's that supposed to mean? It means exactly what every comic book, superhero movie, and nursery story tried to tell us. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Once they finally gave in to temptation, Kieran started getting ideas in his head. It was his name feared through the streets. It was his idea to keep the Ledger. He had no children holding him back or messing with his judgment. Why keep to my father's rules? Why keep to any rules at all? At some point, Kieran reclaimed the mantle and began sinking his hooks deeper into Cinco. Clients weren't about to come to him after the lords got into the blackmail business, so he found other ways to make people beholden to him. Buying loans off of sharks was just one of the ways. He hit the streets again under a new name and with new partners, taking the jobs they once turned down. By the time my dad and Soren realized what he was doing, it was too late. Adeline turned to me. Remember the story I told you? There was an accident at work and my dad lost his job. His best friend was killed. Afterward, new management took over, fired everyone, and hired new people. Well, that was true. There was an accident. Soren confronted Kieran with the rumors, and the bastard was far from repentant. He was done being held back by them. He told Soren they could get on board or get the fuck out of his way. The two fought. One of Kieran's new guards overheard and burst in, shooting at the attacker before anyone knew what was happening. She dropped her eyes. Kieran said he regretted Soren's death, swore he never wanted it to happen that way, but... But what? Saint asked. But Soren's death proved what Kieran knew all along. The Ledger could not be shared. He was taking it, and if my father didn't let him go in peace, he'd be forced to kill him too, she replied. My father didn't back down. He faced him believing the lords were on his side. Some were. Most were not. It was a one-sided, gruesome battle. My father woke in a pool of his own blood, surrounded by the bodies of the men who stood with him. Kieran and the Ledger were gone. Adeline folded her arms, leaning against the cage. Anger leached into her tone, but calm colored her face. The true story of Kieran had lived with her, defined her long before either of us learned his name. The upside is the men who betrayed my father didn't crow their victory for long. Kieran took the final step. With the last person tethering him to humanity dead, he slaughtered everyone who knew his true identity and what he possessed. Then he sunk into the arms of Cinco royalty. The penthouse in the sky, drivers, limos, everything a poor boy bouncing from foster home to foster home dreamed of. He thought he was safe. But your father survived, Mercer finished. Dad bided his time, laid low, worked all day to provide for me and Gianna, stayed up all night planning to avenge Soren and take back the Ledger. He didn't believe Jocelyn's threats to disappear with me if her long list of needs weren't met. Until she did. She sighed. Everything changed after that. Dad let go of his rage and desire for vengeance. He started all of this to give me everything, and now he had nothing. He put everything into finding me. Months into his search, karma visited Kieran. He was found by someone else, and they killed him and took the Ledger. By the time I was safe by his side, the trail was cold. He didn't know where to begin, and he didn't put much effort into trying. He was a single father to me and then Gianna when her mother checked herself into treatment for depression. Eventually, she decided to stay in the facility outside of Cinco, and Gianna got emancipated. It was just the three of us. No room for the ledger. But still, he raised us to take care of ourselves. He made certain that if anyone tried to hurt us, they'd only do so once. He really gave it up? Skepticism laced Mercer's voice. Oscar Redgrave, arguably the one person in this city who has any rights to the ledger. He just washed his hands of it. Daddy decided I was more important. He loved me more than any little black book. She shrugged lightly. I have that effect on people. I cracked a smile. Of that, I have no doubt. But you wouldn't let it go, Kieran said. Against your father's wishes, I assume. You assume correctly. The ledger tore him, Soren, and Kieran apart. One brother dead, the other a monster, the Lord's forgotten. A daughter severely traumatized, the other without a father. If that wasn't enough of a cautionary tale, Kieran's murder and the bloody trail of bodies that followed in his wake should do the trick. Dad refused to let the ledger ruin me like it ruined everyone who knew of its existence. But the fact remains that ledger was always meant to be mine. I can't give Gianna or my father everything we've lost, but I can reclaim the ledger. I can mold our city into the place he dreamed of, and I'll do it as the little girl he raised to be a queen. He never understood that I'm doing this for him, and that's why I won't fail. Saint tipped his head, grinning. And why let a little thing like the men you claim to love get in your way? Savage, Bunny. Again, I'm torn between whipping that ass raw or making that pussy beg. Licking her top lip, she winked. I'll take both, if you're offering. St. John advanced on the cage. He was held back by Kieran and Mercer. Maybe you want to sit this one out, Sin, Mercer said. You seem to be distracting each other. I should hope I drive you all to distraction, she said. You feel the same as I do for you. As fucked up and twisted as we all are, that's the single thing the five of us know to be true. I admit my motives were less than pure in the beginning, but all that has changed. I'd no more hurt you than you'd hurt me. She cocked a brow. Saint keeps no less than 6 knives scattered about his room that would have slit his throat while he slept soundly next to me. Ditto Kieran and his love affair with bombs and guns. Brutal. I found a lovely pair of silver knuckles tucked away in your bookshelf. Mercer, you're not shy about eating everything I put in front of you. Not to mention the room we're standing in right now. The point is, if I really wanted to get rid of you and clear a path to the ledger, I've had that option many times. Obviously, that's not what I want. Of course not. St. John shook them off, approaching her. You want us to be your… what was the word? Courtesans. She straightened. What I want is for us to be partners. You my husbands and me your bride. If there ever is an Alfred Jr., I will be his mother. Is that so? Kieran returned. Yes, she snapped. The 4 of you are mine. You belong to me, and I'm getting tired of repeating it. If you try leaving me, I will kill every bitch you give a sideways look. Read my lips. Mine. I ducked my head to hide that smile. It only served to piss her off, which wasn't what I was going for. The woman's in a freaking cage in our basement, saying that she owns us. Didn't know if I believe in the concept of soulmates, but I didn't doubt for a second that there was no one else on the planet like Adeline Redgrave. Hey, I haven't started questioning my ownership yet. Mercer circled the cage. Merely why this partnership can't be equal. You're who we've been waiting for, gorgeous. One shot with you and we find out we had it wrong the entire time. We came this close to getting the ledger once. We can do it again. Together. Rule Cinco City, he said. Together. That sounds nice, Mercer. She moved with him, as if wary of keeping a predator at her back. It really does. But you heard our story. There was a time Kieran, Soren, and Dad would have died for each other. My father couldn't fathom either of them betraying him. Then came the ledger. It can't be shared. The Lords tried. I'm sure other former owners of the ledger tried too, letting their friends, spouses, and right hands in on the secret. It's likely the reason they earned the title former owner. Eventually, you'll disagree. One will want more while the other says pull back. Your interests will clash. Your operations will eat into each other. All the while, new players enter the scene who haven't graced the pages of the ledger. They'll need to be stalked, dissected, brought to heel. Someone has to make sure the book remains a lethal weapon. But once they've got the goods, who's to say they have to share? Adeline echoed through the small space, her whispers a siren song she likened to the ledger. Why not hold on to the information, give themselves an edge, then another, until you reach the natural conclusion that it should be all yours. A kingdom only has one king. She smiled as hours were wiped from our faces. See, you don't want to admit it, but people like us weren't built to stop at enough. If we want more, we take it, and tell the bitch who was in our way to thank us for the pleasure. I can't stand to see the merchants go the same way as the lords. I love you, she stated. The only option that makes sense is for me to claim the ledger, free you from its hold, and disappear. St. John snarled. But, Adeline continued, I anticipate a very long and deadly manhunt if I attempt such a thing. So there's option 2. You accept that my birthright is mine absolutely to do with what I choose. In exchange, you'll have my love, body, and cooking till the world burns to ash around us. She beamed. Isn't that great? There's no downside. And you're not worried we'll turn on you? Kieran drawled. You think we can't trust each other. Why do you trust us? You've chosen me over the ledger before, Kieran. Why shouldn't I believe you could do so again? That you will do it now. He fell silent. We'll run different parts of the operation like you intended from the start, she went on. Adeline flicked to St. John. We'll see through what you set out to do. The true Kieran racked up untold enemies behind my father's back. It's a surprise to me that he felt any sense of guilt that he'd confess his sins. But he was raised Irish Catholic, so there is a chance he brought destruction through the doors of your church. St. John looked away, jaw tight. My father doesn't know who it was that sent those thugs to torture him. And I swear to you I asked. If it proves I'm on your side, I'll put you guys in contact with him. I wanted you to meet him anyway. He's willing to answer your questions about Kieran. There's not much to hide now that he's dead. Where is he? Saint demanded. Let me out and I'll call him. Address, Kieran said. She pulled a face. Can't do that, I'm afraid. The incident with Tara Duncan was a wake-up call. Thanks to you guys, I was finally able to afford moving him to a safer location, far from baby monitors, Jocelyn, and boyfriends that may get ideas in their heads. My father will never be used against me again. There it is. Kieran propped an arm on the bars, resting his forehead on it as he gazed down at her. You want us to trust you, give up everything for you, but you don't trust us. She met him unflinchingly. I'm the one in a cage, sweetheart. St. John clapped Kieran on the back. You've given us a lot to think about, Bunny. We'll need a moment to confer. Adeline held out her hands. It's not like I'm going anywhere. Mercer, St. John, and Kieran filed out. Don't take too long, Adeline called. Warning slipped into her voice. We've wasted 2 days on this when we should be going after the ledger's new keeper. They disappeared up the stairs. I wasn't behind them. Adeline flicked to me. Barris. Barris. One word, my name, and we both changed. The fury drained from her face, and for the barest second, profound tiredness overcame her. Dropping her shoulders, turning her lips down, years and years she forged the path of her righteous mission, shedding conscience and letting nothing stand in her way. I know a little something about that. For 2 days I asked myself if I was angry with her, if I felt betrayed, lied to, or taken advantage of. Did I fall for a fantasy? For 2 days, I waited for the explanation that would set things right. Waiting is what I did, counting the days in unending patience, until I made it right. "Let me out," she whispered. Adeline reached for me, fingers chipped and shaking, reaching through the bars. "Brutal." Suddenly, Kieran was there, standing between us. "We need to talk," he said simply. I inclined my head, dropping the hand I barely noticed I raised. Turning my back to Adeline, I walked out of the cellar. Kieran didn't speak until we were upstairs, and the door locked and bolted behind us. His eyes were hard. "She stays down there until we confirm her story." St. John agreed easier than I expected. "Research Kieran Foley and track down her father. Mercer, find the men who got away from us at the club and question them. One of them must have taken the ledger, but in the time it'll take to track them down, Oscar Redgrave can fill in a few blanks. Those 3 were Kieran when my father was killed. He'll know more than he admitted to his daughter." "He's got health problems requiring daily monitoring," said Mercer. "But if he's anything like an old gangster, he won't stand for being locked in a facility, spoon-fed applesauce. He'll want another place like Waterford Retirement Home." Kieran agreed. The 3 moved off, talking back and forth. "Redgrave could have saved enough to get him an apartment and private nurse," Kieran added. "We'll have to look into the agencies. Finding the Kings and the ledger is our priority." Their voices faded, leaving me in the quiet once again. They could lobby their decisions back and forth. Mine had already been made. Years I waited. I fixed on the basement door. My wait was over.
You can listen to the rest of the book in the Tempt Romance audiobooks app, available on the App Store and Google Play. The link to the book is in the description. Discover even more bestsellers and exclusive stories updated weekly, only in Tempt Romance audiobooks.